The applause in the grand auditorium was deafening, a massive wall of sound that made the concrete floor vibrate beneath my leather shoes. Up on the brightly lit stage, my wife, Claire, stood tall and radiant behind the sleek glass podium. Her tailored blazer caught the harsh studio spotlights, casting an almost angelic glow around her sharp, confident features. She smiled, raising her hands to acknowledge the crowd of high society investors. I stood completely still in the deep shadows at the very back of the auditorium, my arms crossed tightly over my chest. For 4 long years, I had quietly built, monitored, and saved her company's entire logistical framework from an unremarkable back-office desk. I had deliberately masked my true identity as the ultra-wealthy heir to Vance Investment Group, living simple and working hard just to see if her love for me was real. Looking at her now, a cold, heavy lump formed in my throat. My phone buzzed inside my pocket. I pulled it out and saw my brother Marcus's name flashing on the screen. I stepped out into the dim, carpeted corridor behind the seating area to answer it. "I'm watching the live broadcast right now, Owen," Marcus said, his deep voice carrying a tone of intense frustration. "She is taking absolute credit for the entire supply chain optimization model you designed last month. Why are you still playing this ridiculous hiding game with her?" "I wanted to be absolutely sure, Marcus," I murmured, staring at the cold concrete wall. "I needed to know if she loved me for who I am, or just the status." "Well, look at her face on the screen." Marcus sighed heavily. "She loves the crown, brother. You're shrinking your own life to keep her afloat, and she treats you like a ghost. When are you coming back to Vance Group? We need our actual chairman." "Soon," I said quietly, checking my watch. "The presentation is ending. I have to go backstage." I hung up, took a deep breath, and walked through the heavy security doors into the luxurious green room. The air inside smelled of expensive perfume and fresh lilies. Claire walked in a moment later, flushed with the thrill of her public triumph, closely followed by her mother, Eleanor, who was draped in designer silk. The moment Eleanor spotted me standing near the door, her pleasant expression instantly twisted into a look of absolute disgust. "What on earth are you doing standing here like a lost servant, Owen?" Eleanor snapped, crossing her arms defensively. "Did you honestly think it was appropriate to show your face near the main investor reception in those cheap department store clothes?" "I came to congratulate my wife on a successful keynote presentation, Eleanor," I replied, keeping my voice completely calm and level. Claire let out a sharp, irritated sigh as she threw her leather portfolio onto the plush velvet sofa. She didn't look at me. Instead, she adjusted her diamond earrings in the vanity mirror. "Owen, please don't start an argument with my mother today," Claire said, her voice dripping with professional disdain. "We have the elite restructuring board coming in an hour, and your presence here is honestly making things incredibly awkward." "Awkward?" I asked, looking directly at her reflection in the glass. "I spent 48 hours straight fixing the automated shipping database, so your presentation wouldn't crash on stage today, Claire. I thought we were a team." "A team?" Eleanor laughed scoffingly, stepping right into my personal space. "You are a low-level logistics manager making a basic salary, Owen. My daughter is the visionary CEO of a rapidly growing tech empire. You are an anchor dragging her public image down into the mud. You simply do not belong in our world." "Mother is right, Owen." Claire turned around, her face completely cold and devoid of any marital warmth. "We need to face reality. The upcoming corporate restructuring requires elite, high society faces at the top. The board needs to see a visionary executive team, not a plain, ordinary clerk." The words felt like ice water flooding my veins, but my face remained perfectly still. The last remaining threads of my hope finally snapped inside my chest. "What exactly are you trying to say, Claire?" I asked. She reached down, picked up a thick legal document from her bag, and held it out toward me. Her eyes didn't waver. "I need you to officially step down from your management position at Miller Tech," Claire stated flatly, her voice entirely businesslike. "I have already drafted the operational transfer paperwork. I am moving you to a quiet, off-site consultant role where you won't need to interact with our primary investors." I looked down at the paper, then back up into her eyes, searching for even a flicker of the woman I had married. There was nothing left but blind, unyielding vanity. You are removing me from the company we built together because of my clothes and my lack of a high society title. I asked softly. It is just business, Owen, Claire replied, turning her back to me once again. Your lack of ambition is an obstacle to my company's growth. Sign the papers by tomorrow morning. Your years of silent support mean absolutely nothing if you cannot elevate her status, Eleanor added maliciously, opening the door to leave. Now excuse us. We have real executives to meet. I watched them walk out, the heavy wooden door clicking shut behind them. The silence of the empty green room enveloped me, but the suffocating weight I had carried for 4 years was completely gone. I pulled out my phone, dialed Marcus, and spoke with absolute clarity. Marcus, prepare the master equity portfolio, I said. The chairman is coming home. The mahogany table in Miller Tech's primary boardroom felt unusually cold under my palms. I sat at the far end, intentionally isolated, watching the senior board members filter into their seats. Claire sat at the head of the table, her expression tense but fiercely determined. Next to her stood a tall man in a flawlessly tailored charcoal suit, his hair slicked back with a smug precision that made my stomach turn. Everyone, thank you for coming on such short notice, Claire announced, her voice echoing off the glass walls. Today, we are discussing the future of our enterprise. I want to introduce Victor Vance, the founder of Apex AI Systems. Victor has designed an automated integration framework that will cut our operational overhead by 60%. Victor stepped forward, flashing a practiced, charming smile that screamed manipulation. Thank you, Claire. Gentlemen, Miller Tech's current logistics infrastructure is completely outdated. It relies on a slow, manual framework that is actively bleeding money. My AI model can completely replace your human-led logistics division within 30 days. He clicked a remote, projecting a series of flashy graphics and soaring financial charts onto the wall. I leaned forward, my eyes narrowing as I scanned the raw lines of data. The mathematical projections were completely impossible. The code structures he displayed were unverified, empty shell definitions. Victor, these projections don't align with our current compliance laws, I said, my voice cutting through the quiet murmurs of the board. Your automated routing algorithm completely bypasses federal freight safety regulations. If we integrate this, our core shipping licenses will be revoked within a week. Victor stopped, his smug smile faltering for a fraction of a second before he let out a soft, patronizing chuckle. Ah, Owen, you must be the logistics manager. Look, I understand that advanced machine learning concept can be incredibly intimidating to someone who deals with basic spreadsheets, but the technology is sound. It isn't about being intimidated, I replied, staring directly into his eyes. Your historical server data is completely fabricated. You're claiming a 99% efficiency rate on a network protocol that went obsolete 2 years ago. This isn't an innovation framework. It's an empty shell script. A heavy, suffocating silence fell over the room. Several board members shifted uncomfortably, leaning in to look closer at the projected data. Owen, that is absolutely enough. Claire slammed her leather portfolio down onto the table, her face flushing with intense anger as she glared at me. You are completely out of line. You're a local logistics coordinator, not a tech evaluator. Victor's company is backed by elite high society venture groups. His credentials are completely beyond your comprehension. Claire, I am looking at the actual architectural logic of his system, I said, keeping my tone perfectly level. If you drain our resources to implement an unverified API, you will paralyze our active supply chains. I am trying to protect the operational safety of this company. You are trying to protect your own outdated, redundant position. Claire snapped furiously, her voice dripping with absolute condescension in front of her entire staff. Your constant lack of vision is exactly why I am removing you from our core operations. The decision is already made. The board will proceed with the Apex AI integration contract. Victor looked over at me, raising his eyebrows in a victorious, mocking gesture as Claire turned her attention back to the project files. I sank back into my chair, closing my laptop slowly. The blind ambition blinding her judgment was no longer just an annoying marital flaw. It was a corporate liability. I checked out of the meeting mentally, watching her sign the preliminary partnership agreement with a sense of freezing psychological detachment. An hour after the board members adjourned to celebrate the new deal, I walked into the empty finance office to retrieve my personal system logs. As I initialized the master database backup, a flashing red warning indicator caught my attention on the main accounting ledger. My heart hammered against my ribs as I opened the subfiles. Claire had executed a massive, unauthorized capital withdrawal. "What are you still doing in here, Owen?" I turned around to find Claire standing in the doorway, her arms crossed as she watched me with deep suspicion. "You drained $30 million from our emergency asset reserves this afternoon, Claire," I said, turning the monitor toward her. "You completely bypassed our primary investor covenants to wire those funds directly into Victor's private holding account. Do you have any idea what you just done?" "I did what was necessary to secure the future of my empire," she answered defensively, stepping into the room without a single shred of remorse. "Victor needed an immediate capital commitment to secure the master AI servers before the public launch. Those reserve funds are legally tied to our master investment agreement with Advance Investment Group," I said, my voice dropping to a dangerous, icy whisper. "The covenant explicitly states that any transfer over $5 million requires unanimous investor approval. You just committed a massive, actionable breach of contract for a fraudulent startup. Vance Group will never find out, Owen," Claire scoffed, waving her hand dismissively as if I were a nagging child. "Once the AI goes live next month, our profit margins will triple, and I will replace the reserves before the annual audit. Stop looking at me with that pathetic, worried face. This is how real billionaire business is conducted. You genuinely believe he is going to deliver that technology?" I asked, looking at her with a profound, heartbreaking clarity. "I know he will," Claire said coldly, turning toward the exit. "Victor belongs in high society. He has the ambition you completely lack. Don't touch those files again, Owen. Your opinion no longer matters in this building." I watched her shadow vanish down the corridor. I didn't feel sadness anymore. I reached into my pocket, pulled out my phone, and opened my private encrypted corporate portal. With a single tap, I authorized the full transmission of Miller Tech's breached financial ledger directly to my brother's desk at the Vance headquarters. My days of being a patient, protective husband were officially over. I was now purely the chairman. The backstage area of the Grand Convention Center hummed with frantic energy. Production assistants ran past me carrying clipboards. Cables snaked across the floor, and the distant roar of the live audience vibrated right through the heavy drywall. I stood quietly near the equipment racks, wearing my plain charcoal department store suit, watching the main stage monitor. Today was Miller Tech's global live-streamed keynote, the biggest event of Claire's career. I knew I would find you lurking around the dark corners like a stray dog. A sharp, venomous voice sneered from behind me. I turned around slowly. Eleanor stood there, her fingers dripping with heavy diamond rings as she adjusted her expensive fur wrap. Her eyes raked down my simple clothes with absolute disgust. "Eleanor," I said, keeping my tone perfectly even, "the live stream starts in 5 minutes. You should be in the VIP seating area." "Do not tell me where to go, Owen," she snapped, stepping closer so the production staff wouldn't hear her. "Look at yourself. You are a pathetic, low-class embarrassment. Today, my daughter enters the elite billionaire circle of tech innovators. She is launching a revolution with Victor, a real man of high society. You are a stain on our family's reputation, and your time in our world is officially over. This company's logistics network ran flawlessly because of my work, Eleanor," I replied quietly. "Status doesn't move freight. Logistics does. Enjoy your petty spreadsheets while you can, clerk," she hissed, flashing a cruel, triumphant smile. "Because after today, you won't even be allowed to sweep the floors in this building." She spun on her designer heels and walked away. I let out a slow breath, turning my attention back to the monitor. The countdown reached 0, and the broadcast graphics flashed across the massive screens. The announcer's voice boomed through the speakers. "Welcome to the stage, the CEO of Miller Tech, Claire Vance." Claire walked out under the blinding stage lights, looking exceptionally stunning in a sharp, tailored white business suit. The applause was deafening. Thousands of people in the auditorium cheered, and the live stream counter in the corner of the monitor instantly surged past 50,000 active online viewers. "Thank you, everyone," Claire said, her voice projecting flawlessly through her headset microphone. "Today, Miller Tech leaves the past behind. To achieve true global scale, an empire must ruthlessly eliminate its greatest operational inefficiencies. We must remove the very roadblocks holding us back." I frowned slightly, a strange, cold sensation tightening in my chest. For years, our growth has been severely throttled by outdated, manual logistics management, Claire continued, her expression turning ice-cold as she looked directly into the main broadcast camera. "Our current logistics head, Owen, represents that old, stagnant mindset. Therefore, live in front of our global partners and investors today, I am officially relieving him of his duties. Owen is an outdated operational roadblock, and he is fired effective immediately." The auditorium gasped, followed by a wave of stunned whispers. Backstage, the production crew completely froze, all eyes suddenly darting over to where I stood. On screen, Claire didn't blink. She smiled warmly as she gestured toward the wings. "To lead us into the future, please welcome our new Chief Operating Officer and Master Technology Partner, Victor Vance," Claire announced proudly. Victor walked onto the stage, waving arrogantly to the crowd, and immediately wrapped an arm around Claire's waist. The investors broke into a loud cheer, completely captivated by the high society drama. I stood in the shadows, staring at the monitor. The public humiliation was intended to completely destroy my dignity, to crush me under the weight of her global audience. Instead, I felt a profound, incredible sensation wash over me. It was absolute emotional liberation. The heavy chains of my 4-year marriage had just been ripped away by her own blind arrogance. I didn't hide. I walked out from behind the equipment racks and stepped right onto the edge of the backstage wings, fully visible to the main broadcast cameras covering the side of the stage. Claire noticed me immediately. Her breath hitched slightly mid-sentence, and her eyes widened in brief panic as she saw me walking calmly toward the backstage exit door. She tried to maintain her professional smile, but her hands were visibly shaking against her notes. I stopped right by the exit. I looked past the stage lights, directly into the primary camera lens that was broadcasting to tens of thousands of global executives. Then, I looked back at Claire. I raised my hand, giving her a slow, absolute, and chillingly calm nod. "Owen," a voice called out in a frantic whisper. I turned and saw Claire's lead stage manager running toward me, looking completely terrified. "Owen, please don't cause a scene. The cameras are live. The whole industry is watching." "Don't worry," I said softly, my voice completely devoid of anger. "I'm not going to cause a scene. Tell Claire to enjoy her applause. It is the last one she will ever receive." I pushed open the heavy exit doors, walking out of the suffocating convention center and into the bright, crisp afternoon air of the parking lot. I took a deep, clear breath, feeling the full weight of the Vance legacy returning to my shoulders. I reached into my pocket, pulled out my phone, and speed-dialed the private, encrypted line to our executive headquarters. Marcus answered on the very first ring. "Owen, I am watching the stream right now. That ungrateful bee." "Marcus, calm down," I interrupted, my voice dropping into a freezing, authoritative tone that I hadn't used in 4 long years. "It's over. Activate the master portfolio." "Are we executing the covenant clause?" Marcus asked, his tone instantly shifting into serious, high-stakes business mode. "Yes," I replied, opening the door to my car. "Terminate the entire Miller Tech acquisition immediately. Recall every single line of credit we extended to her firm and freeze their operational accounts by Friday morning. I am coming to the tower right now. It is time to take back my seat. The cold asphalt of the convention center parking lot clicked beneath my boots. I reached for my car door handle, but a hurried, uneven set of footsteps echoing behind me made me pause. I turned around sharply, my muscles tensing. Owen, wait. Please stop. Brooke Davis, the senior data analyst from Miller Tech, was running toward me. Her breath came in short, ragged gasps, her glasses slipping slightly down her nose. She looked around the open parking lot frantically, checking over her shoulder as if she expected Claire's security team to tackle her at any moment. Brooke, I asked, stepping toward her, what are you doing out here? The broadcast is still live. I don't care about the broadcast. Owen, she panted, holding a small metallic black flash drive tightly in her hand. What Claire did to you up there, it was absolutely disgusting. The entire tech department is furious. You saved our logistics infrastructure, and she treated you like garbage just to please that fraud, Victor. It's fine, Brooke. Truly, I said, offering her a calm, reassuring smile. She did what she thought she had to do. No, it is not fine, Brooke hissed, thrusting the flash drive into my palm. Take this. I risked my entire career downloading these files from the secure ledger 5 minutes ago. Claire thinks she is a genius, but she is completely blind. I looked down at the drive, its cold metal surface pressing into my skin. What is on here? Complete, undeniable proof, Brooke whispered, her voice trembling with intense adrenaline. Victor's supposed AI company is nothing but a network of illegal overseas shell companies. More importantly, I found the exact digital signatures proving Claire authorized a secret $30 million wire transfer directly into his private accounts this afternoon. She violated the primary investor covenants. Owen. She stole from her own corporate reserves. A slow, icy wave of satisfaction washed over me. You have no idea how valuable this is, Brooke. Thank you for trusting me. Just promise me you'll bring them down, she said fiercely, taking a step back toward the venue. Don't let them win, Owen. They've already lost, I replied quietly. They just don't know it yet. 10 minutes later, my sedan roared down the highway toward the commercial heart of the city. I pulled up to the private executive entrance of the Vance Investment Group Tower, an ultra-luxurious glass skyscraper that I hadn't stepped inside for 4 years. The security guards at the private elevator bank instantly recognized my face, straightening their posture and bowing their heads in deep respect. Welcome back, Chairman, the head guard murmured, pressing the Golden Master key card into the scanner. I rode the private express elevator straight up to the top floor. The doors slid open to reveal a massive, sunlit penthouse boardroom overlooking the entire city skyline. My older brother, Marcus, was already pacing across the polished marble floor, holding a glass of scotch. You took your sweet time getting here, Owen, Marcus said, setting his glass down onto the mahogany desk. The lawyers are already in the adjoining conference room. Did you bring what we need to finalize the breach? I have something even better, I said, walking over and tossing Brooke's flash drive directly onto his laptop keyboard. Our senior data analyst just handed me the keys to Miller Tech's coffin. Open the secondary ledger encryption. Marcus sat down, plugging the drive in. His fingers flew across the keyboard for a few moments before a look of absolute corporate malice spread across his face. Unbelievable. Marcus laughed coldly, turning the screen toward me. Look at this timeline, Owen. She didn't even wait for the ink to dry on the preliminary partnership deal. $30 million shifted straight out of the reserve pool and into a bank account in the Cayman Islands registered under Victor's legal alias. She completely handed him her entire company's safety net. She thought she was operating in the dark, I said, leaning over the desk as I stared at the raw data lines. She truly believed the Vance Investment Group was just a faceless corporate entity that wouldn't notice a variance until the annual audit next year. Well, the faceless entity is about to rip her world apart. Marcus smiled grimly, pulling up a stack of official, red-stamped legal documents. Because she transferred more than $5 million without our unanimous board consent, she is in total non-curable breach of our master funding covenant. We have the absolute legal right to execute a full clawback. Good, I said, my voice dripping with an unshakable, freezing authority. Give me the pen. Marcus handed me the heavy, gold-plated executive fountain pen. I sat down in the high-backed leather chair, feeling a profound, deep inner peace settle into my chest. The submissive, quiet husband who tolerated insults for 4 years was completely gone. The power dynamic had shifted back to its rightful alignment. Here are the termination decrees, Marcus explained, pointing to the signature lines. The first document completely cancels the multi-million-dollar Miller Tech acquisition structure. The second one officially recalls every single active loan we extended to her firm over the last 3 years, demanding immediate repayment within 24 hours. And the third one? I asked, my pen hovering over the paper. The third one is the absolute death blow, Marcus whispered with a sharp grin. It's a direct, court-sanctioned emergency asset freeze. By exactly 9 o'clock on Friday morning, every single corporate bank account tied to Miller Tech and Claire's executive name will be completely locked down. I pressed the pen to the paper, signing my true legal name with a swift, elegant stroke. Owen Vance, Chairman. It is done, I said, sliding the papers back to Marcus. Deliver these directly to her legal department tomorrow morning. Are you going to be there when she finds out? Marcus asked. Oh, absolutely, I replied, looking out the massive glass windows at the sprawling city below us. I want to be sitting in the room when her perfect little high society dream completely crumbles into dust. The atmosphere inside the primary executive boardroom of Vance Investment Group was thick with premature celebration. Through the frosted glass panels, I could hear Victor's obnoxious, booming laughter and the distinct clinking of fine crystal glasses. They were sitting at the massive mahogany conference table, flanked by our junior legal representatives, completely convinced that they were moments away from receiving a $50 million acquisition wire. I stood outside the heavy double doors, adjusting the cuffs of my bespoke, midnight blue designer suit. The cheap department store clothes were gone. I took a slow, deep breath, signaled the security details standing beside me, and pushed the doors open. The laughter in the room instantly died. Claire, who was elegantly raising a champagne flute to her lips, completely froze. Her eyes went wide, her jaw dropping open as she stared at my tailored suit, my confident posture, and the elite security force flanking me. Owen, Claire stammered, her voice pitching up in absolute, unadulterated shock. What on earth are you doing here? And why are you dressed like that? Security. How did this fired clerk bypass the lobby? Get him out of this building immediately. Sit down, Claire, I said, my voice completely calm, echoing with a chilling authority that resonated off the glass walls. Are you insane? Victor shouted, standing up and slamming his hand onto the table. You are a pathetic, low-level operational roadblock who got publicly humiliated yesterday. This is the Vance Investment Group penthouse. You don't belong in high society, you absolute loser. I didn't answer him. I walked slowly down the length of the long mahogany table, completely ignoring his outbursts. The junior executives of Vance Group immediately stood up, bowing their heads in deep, terrified respect as I approached the head of the table. I pulled back the high-backed, black leather chairman's seat, the absolute seat of power in this empire, and calmly sat down. What are you doing? Claire whispered, her face turning an ashen shade of pale as she watched the junior executives remain standing. Why are they bowing to you? They are bowing because they know who controls their payroll, Claire, I said, leaning forward and resting my interlaced fingers on the polished wood. Let me officially introduce myself. I am Owen Vance, the sole owner and chairman of the Vance Investment Group. No, that's impossible, Claire gasped, her hands shaking so violently that her champagne glass shattered against the table, spilling liquid across the clean documents. You're a logistics manager. We've been married for 4 years. You can't be him. I am him, I replied coldly. I spent 4 years watching you and your mother value titles and wealth over basic human decency. I wanted to see if your love was real, Claire. But yesterday, you showed the entire world exactly what you are. Oh, wait, please. Victor cut in, his voice suddenly losing all of its arrogant edge, replaced by a desperate, sweating panic. We can make a deal. The AI integration model is still revolutionary. We can partner up billionaire to billionaire. There is no AI model. Victor, I said, pulling Brooks' metallic black flash drive from my pocket and tossing it onto the table. I have the full digital trail of your illegal overseas shell companies. And I have the exact transaction records of the $30 million Claire illegally drained from her corporate reserves to fund your lifestyle. Claire's eyes darted from the drive to my face, her breathing becoming shallow and erratic as the terrifying reality check finally began to shatter her mind. Owen, please. Because of your unauthorized capital transfer, you are an immediate, non-curable breach of our primary funding covenant, I announced, sliding a thick stack of red-stamped legal documents directly across the table toward her. As the chairman, I have officially signed the termination decrees. The master acquisition of MillerTech is completely canceled. Canceled? Claire choked out, her voice breaking into a desperate sob as she flipped through the pages. If you pull the funding now, our suppliers will revolt by tonight. We will be completely ruined. You are ruined, I corrected her flatly. I am recalling every single active loan advance group extended to your firm over the last 3 years. Total repayment is due within 24 hours. Furthermore, at exactly 9 o'clock tomorrow morning, every single corporate and personal bank account tied to your executive name will be completely frozen by court order. MillerTech is entirely bankrupt. Claire looked over at Victor, her eyes wild with terror. Victor, do something. Call your high society venture contacts. Use your resources to stop the freeze. Victor looked at the legal documents, his face slick with sweat. He looked at me, seeing the absolute, unshakable ice in my eyes, and instantly realized that his fraudulent game was completely finished. Without saying a single word to Claire, Victor slowly reached down, grabbed his leather briefcase, and backed away from the table. Victor, Claire cried out, reaching for his sleeve. Where are you going? You promised we were in this together. Oh, look, Claire, this is a personal matter between you and your husband, Victor stammered, backing toward the exit doors as his absolute cowardice was laid bare before the entire room. I can't be associated with an active financial fraud investigation. I have to protect my own interests. Good luck. He turned and practically sprinted out of the boardroom doors, leaving her behind without a single backward glance. Claire watched the doors slam shut, her high society dreams, her pride, and her entire empire completely crumbling into absolute dust right before her eyes. The realization of her monumental mistake hit her like a physical blow. Her knees completely buckled, and she fell heavily onto the carpeted floor, weeping hysterically as she reached up toward the edge of my desk. Owen, I'm begging you, she sobbed, looking up at me with tearful, glossy eyes filled with profound regret. I was blind. My mother pressured me. Victor manipulated me. I still love you, Owen. Please don't destroy everything we built. I sat back in my leather chair, looking down at her kneeling figure with complete, peaceful indifference. You didn't build this, Claire. I did. And today I am taking it back. The sun filtered warmly through the floor-to-ceiling windows of my newly arranged office at Vance Investment Group. A serene, quiet atmosphere enveloped the room, a stark contrast to the chaotic storms of the past few days. I sat at my sleek desk, letting out a long, unburdened breath. Suddenly, my personal phone began to vibrate violently across the polished wood surface. I glanced down and saw Claire's name flashing on the screen. I picked it up and pressed answer, keeping my voice completely neutral. Owen speaking. Owen. Oh my God, Owen, please don't hang up on me. Claire's voice erupted through the receiver, frantic, broken, and choked with heavy, breathless sobs. They locked the doors, Owen. The federal agents are literally standing inside the MillerTech lobby right now, wrapping everything in corporate seizure tape. They took my keys, my car, everything. The asset freeze took effect at exactly 9 o'clock this morning, Claire, I replied, my voice completely level. You were fully warned. Please, you have to stop this, she wailed hysterically, her words tumbling out in a desperate, chaotic rush. It wasn't my fault. I was completely blinded, Owen. Victor manipulated me from the very start with those fake server codes, and my mother kept repeating that you were just dead weight holding my career back. They forced my hand, I swear. I never wanted to fire you live. Nobody forced you to stand on that stage and call me an outdated operational roadblock to impress a high society crowd. Claire, I said softly, staring out at the expansive city skyline. You made a calculated choice to sacrifice my dignity for your own blind vanity. You genuinely believed I was disposable because I didn't care about your elite titles. I was stupid. I was so incredibly wrong, she screamed into the phone, the sound of distant corporate sirens echoing faintly in her background. I love you, Owen. We are still legally married. We can rebuild Miller Tech together, just you and me. Please, just release the bank accounts so I can pay off the primary suppliers. Our marriage ended the exact moment you turned those broadcast cameras on me, Claire. I said, a profound, unshakable sense of closure washing over my entire chest. There is no corporate recovery, and there is no us. This is your final audit. Goodbye. Owen, wait. No, please. I lowered the phone, cut the connection mid-sentence, and immediately pressed the settings icon to block her number permanently. I dropped the device onto the desk, feeling an incredible, light sensation of absolute psychological victory. The emotional chains of a toxic 4-year lie were entirely gone. A soft knock sounded at my office door, and it pushed open to reveal Brooke Davis, holding a slim tablet, accompanied by my older brother, Marcus. Brooke smiled warmly, her posture relaxed and confident. The transition protocol is officially complete, Chairman, Brooke announced, handing me the digital tablet. Because we used my clean data metrics, the court-ordered liquidation of Miller Tech's remaining physical assets is proceeding flawlessly without stalling the regional freight lines. Excellent work, Brooke, I said, reviewing the glowing financial lines on the screen. And what about the senior management staff? Eleanor's elite country club estate went into immediate foreclosure an hour ago to cover her outstanding personal luxury debts. Marcus chimed in, a sharp, satisfied grin spreading across his face as he leaned against the doorframe. She is currently screaming at our legal team from a cheap motel room. And Victor? I asked, looking up at my brother. The state police intercepted him at the international departures gate at the airport 20 minutes ago. Marcus replied, chuckling softly. He was trying to board a private flight to Switzerland with a suitcase full of embezzled corporate bonds. He is officially under arrest for multi-million-dollar grand larceny and systemic financial fraud. He isn't going to see high society for a very, very long time. It's incredible how fast an empire collapses when it's built on vanity and stolen capital, Brooke murmured, walking over to stand beside my desk, looking out at the sunlit city below. It collapses because it lacked an actual foundation, I said, setting the tablet down and standing up to join them by the massive glass windows. They focused entirely on the appearance of power, completely forgetting that a supply chain only functions if the people on the ground are authentic. So, what is the next corporate move for the chairman of Vance Group? Marcus asked, stepping up and placing a proud, heavy hand onto my shoulder. We have 3 global acquisition portfolios waiting for your executive signature next door. I looked out at the vast, sprawling horizon, watching the distant cargo trucks moving smoothly along the highway lines far below us. For 4 years, I had hidden in the shadows, shrinking my own identity to protect a woman who ultimately saw me as an obstacle. Now, the truth was out. The villains had met their natural karmic justice, and my path forward was entirely clear. The next move is simple. Marcus, I said, a genuine, peaceful smile forming on my face as I turned to look at my brother and my most loyal ally. We are going to build a completely new, honest chapter of this empire. And this time, we're doing it entirely on our own terms, with zero regrets.